What is going on, YouTube people? Northeast Ohio Sports Cards here for the Friday morning little NBA market update. Been doing these the last few weeks, just kind of looking back at the last 7 to 14 days or so of the NBA market and how the playoffs have impacted it and the various players involved thus far. And the NBA has been absolutely off its rockers this week. Off its rockers. There, it would be its own video to talk about all the things that have happened. Maybe I'll do that I wasn't planning on doing a video for Saturday. Maybe I'll do a Saturday NBA news dump video. I don't know, but there's just so many things have happened. Leonard's knee injury, CP3 COVID, Zion's mad, Luca maybe mad. We don't know. Coaches, 3 coaching changes or firings or not bringing you backs. That's just to name a few. I think I'm forgetting a couple things. Just absolutely wild last 48 hours. The 76ers Hawks game has happened. The Clippers still can't, or the Jazz couldn't knock off the Clippers even without Leonard. I am recording this prior to Nets Bucks, so I don't know what happens in that game yet. Game's about to tip off here shortly. I'm trying to get this recorded prior to that. But yeah, today we're going to dive into some NBA charts. So like, comment, sub, all the YouTube stuff down below. Market movers links, eBay links, all that stuff. I don't know when it's posting yet, but I was a guest on the Women of the Hobby show with Sam and Hannah, or She Collects Cards. So once that gets posted and I have a link for it or whatever, I will share that. But if you're not subscribed to Women of the Hobby, you probably should be. And look for an upcoming interview with me on there. We talked a lot about a lot of national talk. Just a lot of national talk, all sorts of stuff, just hobby vibes, just all sorts of good stuff. Great conversation. I forget how long we recorded for. I really don't even know because I just had so much fun talking to both of them. So I will post the link to that once Sam has the video posted up. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and dive in. We're going to start with LeBron. I know he's not currently in the playoffs and has been recently eliminated, but at least for a week, he's showing signs of life. I've been tracking this market very closely as I am strongly considering pulling the trigger on one of these. And I noticed that his lower, air quotes, lower end stuff, PSA 8s, PSA 9s, BGS 95s, BGS 9s, are actually leveling out a little bit. Those are the 5 cards that I pulled. We come down here. PSA 10's up 4%, fairly flat. PSA 9's down 15%. PSA 8's actually up a few percent. BGS 95's actually up 20%. BGS 9's up 6%. And I think what might be happening here is, and I'm just speaking from my own thought process, the prices on these have gotten to the point where a different tier of buyers can get involved now. You know, previously, back in the last 3 to 4 months, I didn't have the money laying around to pull the trigger on a LeBron Topps Chrome, or it would have wiped out, my entire fun money pool. Now they're getting a little bit more reasonable. 2K for a PSA 8 doesn't seem all that bad. And you also less downside risk now. Yeah, sure, that card could still keep going down, but long term, I think I feel okay getting into a PSA 8 or PSA 9 at around 4 to 5K. I do know this last 3,900 sale, because most of them before this were around mid 4s. This 3,900 sale was because I was actually watching this, potentially going to pull the trigger on it, and I decided not to. It was an old PSA label, and I know a lot of people do not like the old PSA labels. So I'm wondering if that had something to do with that one being lower, because literally everything else is up slightly. And this card prior to that sale was trending up. It was also an auction that they had priced at 3,900 as the starting bid. And usually people don't get too involved in auctions that have super high starting prices. So there might be some weird circumstances with that one. I would not even have known that other than the fact that I've been closely watching these. So the LeBron market seems to maybe, on at least Chrome, slowly ticking up. And I know Flipping Steve talked about it on his Philly show video, and when he briefly popped into the live stream the other night on my channel, and he talked about it on his channel, a lot of people at the Philly show were looking for LeBron Topps Chromes, and people weren't selling. So I think people are looking like, hey, this has gotten low enough. Let me start picking some of these up with the anticipation that it's going to start slowly creeping back up again. I don't think it's ever going to see, not ever, but not anytime soon is it going to see the February highs that we saw. But I think maybe the hate's gone a little bit too far on this. Speaking of the hate going too far, Kevin Durant. We've talked about him a couple different times. His Topps Chrome PSA 10 and PSA 9 really took a beating and really got pretty cheap. This chart I ran back about like 11 days. I went back to the low point just for the hell of it to kind of see how far it's come up and where it kind of bottomed out at. So the bottom of the 10 was at 4,200 and the 9 was 1,200. Since that point, they're up 12% and 17% respectively. Obviously, a lot of that has to do with the 49-point game, but you know, he's probably, other than LeBron, I mean, in the playoffs, he's definitely the best player left. Is he the best player in the league right now? Like, not even counting playoff teams. Like, is he number one, given his age and everything? Like, I would still put LeBron ahead of him if you're talking legacy discussion, but like, just actually being able to roll a ball out there and play a game today in a one game situation, like, who are you taking over KD? Maybe LeBron, maybe Curry. Is that the end of the list? I think that's the end of the list. So I think this is another case of his stuff got a little too cheap. It was already starting to slowly tick back up. And then he had the 49-point game, and there was a little bit of a run the other night on his stuff. Maybe it comes back down after they get eliminated, but he would be another player like I've been talking about, LeBron, Mahomes, Durant. If these guys' prices are going to dip and their cards become more affordable, that's what you should be running out to buy if you can afford it, or go for some of their lesser end products if you can't afford the chromes. Because I feel pretty safe parking money in there. If the market's going to dip, I'm going to put the money into the guys that I know, even if the market doesn't fully rebound. Long term, holding a KD chrome in a 9 or a 10, I think I'm going to be fine. It might take a year or two for it to get back to the older numbers that are make a 30 or 40% return on it, but that's okay. We have to remember, we have to reset our mindset on the days of cards going up 50% a week or over. It's back to these more slow and steady gradual gains on these high-end players. And like I said, maybe we haven't hit the floor yet. Maybe in the next few weeks leading up to the National or the Dallas show or whatever, LeBron stuff comes back down again and KD stuff comes back down again if they lose. I don't know. But if I'm going to put money into this market, I'm going after higher end players and taking advantage of this dip by buying their cards. Moving right along, speaking of guys going way down, whoo boy, Giannis PSA 10 down 24%. This is over a 14-day period. I went back 2 weeks on this one. Down to 1,500 now, 1,477 for a PSA 10. And this could go either way. This could keep going down if they lose tonight, obviously. If they win tonight and then they get through a game 7, I still think, as bad as that collapse was, that the Bucks still have a chance to beat the Nets. Coach Bud is not doing them any favors at all. And of the coaching carousels, he's probably the next one gone the second this series is over if they don't make it to the next round. You have to imagine that he is gone if they lose tonight or whenever game 7 would be. That they might not even let him back on the plane if that goes to a game 7 and they have to go to Brooklyn. And that's a very interesting job opening for someone to take. You're getting Giannis, Middleton, and Drew. You have a ready-made team, and they desperately need a new coach, in my opinion, to fully take advantage of them. Their offense is just god-awful to watch. Like, I understand Giannis is not a perfect offensive player, but not attacking Harden is a crime against humanity in that game. So I'll be curious to see how tonight plays out. Once again, you guys have better information than me watching this video tomorrow because this game has not been played yet. So there's a chance that this is down another 10 or 15% by the time this video posts tomorrow morning if things go a certain direction. I don't see it ticking back up unless they win this series. And let's be honest, the East is wide open right now. I pontificated the other day on the SCI Discord. I was kind of like, so the Hawks in the NBA Finals? Question mark? Because, I mean, They could lose to the 76ers still, but that was a disaster. If the Nets win, they're beat to hell. It's clear that Harden is not going to be right for a while, and Kyrie's probably not going to be back for a while. So is it like that crazy to say that the Hawks could beat a one-man band KD and a gimped Harden? I wouldn't bet on it, but it's in the range of outcomes. I wouldn't be shocked. And if it's the Bucks, I mean, we've seen that they're 76ers level of blowing leads and collapsing. So, I mean, there's at least a decent possibility that Trae Young's in the NBA Finals. What a wild ride that would have been. Speaking of Trae, let's hop over to him real quick. These are his base cards: base optic, base prism, base select concourse, and premier. Looking at slight upticks. Now, the interesting thing here is this card. So if you come down here over the last 7 days, it's not much change. 6%, 5%, 5%, 3%. But most of this, you can see on the charts here, everything was trending down, and then they won that game, and it's picking back up again. Because now they only need to win 1 out of 2, and now all of a sudden, Trae Young's in the Eastern Conference Finals. So I think people were concerned that series was over, and then Game 5 happened, and now all of a sudden, people are like, oh, wait a second. Trae Young might be in the Eastern Conference Finals, and if they get to the Eastern Conference Finals, that's 4 games away from the NBA Finals, which would be absolutely wild. So Trae Young definitely seeing a very late week bounce. Once again, you can see these were trending down, and then the last couple of days, whoop, 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 all shooting back up again. Let's go over to his silvers. Oops, sorry, wrong order there. Let's go over and pop a look at his silvers. This is his Optic Hollow, Prism Silver, Select Silver Concourse, and Select Silver Premier. Same thing, but you're seeing bigger gains. The Optic Hollow's up 20%. Silver's Prism's up 5%, Select's up 28%, and Select Premier is up 14%. Less sales. So the difference here is most of these sales occurred the back half of the week when it was already starting to trend up. So the gains look a little bigger than they actually were. If I back this up a little bit, like 14 days, it would match up more closely with the base chart. But regardless, Trae Young stuff does seem to be on the move as they are essentially poised to move on to the Eastern Conference Finals. CP3, his Topps Chrome, PSA 10, PSA 9, has seen nice gains this week, and then the COVID thing hit. We'll see where that ends up. We don't yet know exactly how many games he may have to miss or not miss. He's in protocols. It could be a couple games. It could be no games if he can register 2 negative tests, is the way that I understand it. This has kind of pumped the brakes on his stuff. It was going up pretty fast. It is now slowed down. This is a 14-day period as well that I ran for this one because there's just not a lot of sales on his stuff. Both the 10 and the 9 are both low pop. I wouldn't feel bad about grabbing either one of these. The PSA 10 Topps Chrome is pop 237. The PSA 9 is pop 250. So out of 9s and 10s, there's only 500 cards graded of his Topps Chrome. And the PSA 9 at a last sale on 6/16 of 350 seems pretty cheap. Assuming he can get back, they're the best team in the West by far, and they're probably the favorite with him on the court to win the NBA title. The Clippers, even if they end up beating the Jazz, which would absolutely shock me, even with them only needing to win 1 game out of 2, are not beating the Suns without Leonard. It's just not going to happen. And then if the Jazz get by him, Conley's clearly still gimped because he hasn't been playing. He wasn't able to come back last night. And Mitchell is clearly not right. He has spurts, but you could tell the ankle is 100% bothering him still. And he's playing through it because it's the playoffs, but he does not look correct. And that team is not fully operational. The Suns could easily beat them, and the Eastern Conference is an absolute disaster. So I would take the Suns over any Eastern Conference team unless the Nets find the fountain of youth and all of a sudden Harden and Kyrie are, healthy and back to normal. So none of the other teams in the East scare me. The 76ers sure as hell don't anymore. The Bucks don't. And the Hawks, I think it would be a fun story, but I don't think they're winning a title, obviously. I just think they're too young. They don't have the veteran experience on that team for a deep run like that. But that would be a fun series. Hawks Suns in the NBA Finals would be wild. Leonard. ACL injury is all that we know. We don't know if it's officially torn yet or a partial tear or what the rehab time is at the time of recording this video. but his stuff definitely taking a hit. This is a 7-day chart. In the last 7 days, down 13% from 1600 to 1300 or 1400 rather. Interesting thing here is if it's not actually like fully torn and he's just out for the playoffs, but he's fine to start next year. There could be an interesting dip buying opportunity from people thinking that it's a real ACL injury where he's out for like all of next year. That's still in play though. It's extremely risky. We're a Shams or a Woj tweet away from his stuff dropping another 20 or 30%. Because if it is fully torn and he has to have surgery, that probably puts him out for all of next season, I would have to imagine. And then his stuff would probably dip for a while and then flatten and actually probably slowly start going back up again if it follows the Klay Thompson model. Speaking of the Jazz, Donovan Mitchell, it's kind of flattened out a little bit with their up and down play. He was the biggest winner last week. This week, he's just kind of flat as kind of uncertainty continues to hang around that team. They really need Conley back. Desperately do they need Conley back. And they need Mitchell fully healthy. I really think that they would just blow the Clippers out of the water if they were 100%, but they're not. And very few teams are right now. Kind of is what it is this late into the season. Injuries are definitely playing a key role, and they are really hampering the Jazz. Just touching on a couple other quick guys that are going down. Michael Porter Jr., 14-day chart here, down 40%. I'm sorry, down 20% from 180 to 140. I have a feeling his stuff's going to keep going. He tweaked his back. He did not look right in that last series against the Suns. I still like him as an interesting prospect long-term play, especially if his stuff keeps coming down. He'd be one I'd have my eyes on it as an interesting longer-term hold. I think there's a decent chance that, not a decent, there's probably at least a chance that he gets traded if they look to upgrade the roster. He's the primary trade piece. But that team's going to be weird next year too because Jamal Murray is probably going to miss most of the season with that injury. He'll probably be back late in the season, but he's not going to be around for a majority of the season, at least the first probably 3 quarters. Probably out at least to the All-Star break at minimum. He tore that pretty late in the year. So we'll see what they do with MPJ in the offseason, but he is coming up against the rookie max extension. So we will see what they want to do with that. Touching in on Luka briefly, and then we'll kind of wrap up here. His base stuff, Optic PSA 9 down 10, base Prism down 10, both his selects down 10 and 15%. Base Prism has gone under $800 now and continuing to fall. We'll see where the floor is on this stuff. This is one of those ones of how low is it going to go with the population count that high. I'm surprised that the others, I'm not surprised, the other stuff's coming down with it, but I think it's worth keeping an eye on, his Optic base is only pop 4K. That's a lot, but it's not a lot comparative to the Prism base. I've talked about this Select Premier a lot at pop 600, down to $800 now. I bought mine at 1200, so that's not looking great, but I would almost consider picking up another one of these depending on how cheap this gets. And even the Select Concourse at 1400. If you're looking at a base card, this is down to $500 now. Like, that's pretty reasonable. His silvers, I just pulled base silver, not the hollows or anything. There hasn't been a lot of sales on a lot of the other stuff. But his Prism Silver PSA 10 and PSA 9 are down 7% on the 10, 18% on the 9. So around $1,300 for a PSA 9. This is getting interesting to me. This is coming into that $1,000 price point that I like to play in. I assume this is going to get maybe down to 1,000, if not under 1,000. If this goes under $1,000, this would definitely be on my radar as a potential pickup. Just a Silver Prism PSA 9 of Luka seems pretty good. I think that team's going to majorly shake things up, and anytime that happens is usually good for card prices. But once again, I'm very curious to see where the bottom is, specifically on Luka, Ja, and Zion, and Trey, really. But Trey's still playing, so that one gets a little trickier. But those 3 that have been eliminated, Zion's been out for a while now. I'll talk about him on Sunday. Where is the bottom on that card? Because I think that's kind of used as a general baseline for the overall health of the basketball market. How far does that card fall tells us a lot about people's opinions on the current modern NBA market, whether it's his Prism base or his Prism Silver. You can really use that as a gauge for the general health of the other stuff. That, and if you see, okay, his base Prism went down, say 40%, does that give you a target number for like how much Trae Young would go down if they get eliminated. I don't know. It's not apples to apples, but it's at least food for thought. So that's all I have for you guys and girls today. Like, comment, subscribe, all the YouTube stuff down below. Catch you. I don't know if there's going to be a Saturday morning video or not. I will be at the Canton Card Show on Saturday walking around. So I might not do the video and just do a live stream instead. I don't know. But as of right now, let's say no Saturday video, but definitely be back on Sunday. So we'll catch you guys and girls on the next one. Peace.